So, picture this. It's 1905. The world is just starting to hear these horrifying whispers about what's happening in the Congo Free State, this massive territory, not a colony of Belgium, but the personal property of one man, King Leopold II. To shine a light on these horrors, the great American writer Mark Twain decides to pick up his pen. But he doesn't write some dry report. No, his weapon is satire. He gets inside the head of the tyrant himself. So today, we're going to dive into this absolute masterclass in condemnation, King Leopold's soliloquy.
Right from the first line, it's just an explosion. There's no calm introduction, no careful defense, just pure volcanic rage. Twain's version of Leopold is storming around his room, absolutely furious. But what's he furious about? Is it the atrocities, the death? No. He's furious at the people who are daring to talk about them. These first words, literally censored on the page with dashes, they immediately show you a man who's been caught, a cornered animal, lashing out because his dirty secrets are finally seeing the light of day.
And right there, that's the genius of what Twain is doing here. See, he's not just listing off facts and figures. He's creating a fictional confession. By imagining Leopold all alone, just ranting his inner thoughts, Twain lets the king do all the work. He basically hands him the rope, and the king is more than happy to hang himself with his own words. What you get is a portrait of villainy that is so much more chilling, so much more powerful than any straightforward report could ever be.
Okay, so what is he really so worked up about? What is the king's big complaint? It's not the suffering, it's not the millions of deaths, it's the bad PR. His entire problem, his whole source of rage, is that he's losing control of the narrative.
This quote, it just takes your breath away with its arrogance. Twain's Leopold just comes right out and says it. He spent a fortune on bribes and propaganda to keep the press quiet. And then he delivers this incredible line. Grant them true. What of it? He doesn't even bother denying the accusations. He basically admits they're true. His argument is that the truth itself becomes a lie, a slander, when it's spoken about someone as important as him. It is just a stunning look into the mind of someone with absolute unchecked power.
Now, to really grasp the sheer scale of this crime, you have to first understand the scale of the lie that started it all. You see, the Congo Free State wasn't sold to the world as some colonial cash grab. Oh no, it was pitched as one of the greatest humanitarian missions of the era.
And through Twain's writing, you can just feel Leopold beaming with pride at his own deception. He's boasting about the performance he put on for the world's leaders. He talks about crying, about being this pious crusader whose only goal was to end slavery and bring Christianity and civilization to the Congo. The language is just dripping with sarcasm, my mouth full of Bible, oozing piety at every pore. It paints his perfect picture of a world-class con artist, playing on the noblest intentions of the entire planet.
And the crazy thing is, the con actually worked. It worked beautifully. The great powers of Europe and America, they all gathered at the Berlin Conference, and they handed over a territory 80 times the size of Belgium to Leopold. Not to the nation of Belgium, mind you, but to him personally. It was his private property. And Twain makes sure his American readers get a little sting from this. The United States, the supposed beacon of liberty, was the very first country to officially recognize his flag and legitimize the whole operation.
So, with the stage set and the world completely fooled, the humanitarian mask finally came off, and the real reason for the Congo Free State was laid bare for all to see. To squeeze every last drop of wealth out of the land, mostly rubber and ivory, built on a foundation of pure, unadulterated terror. 10 million. This is the number that has come to define Leopold's rule in the Congo. An estimated 10 million people died. They died from murder, from starvation, from exhaustion, from diseases that ran rampant. The population decline was so catastrophic that many historians today don't hesitate to call it a genocide. This isn't just a number on a slide. It's a mountain of corpses.
So what's Leopold's reaction to this unbelievable number? Is it horror? Is it guilt? Remorse? No, it's annoyance. He's upset that it's given him a bad nickname. He whines about being called a record for murder like he's complaining about a bad restaurant review. It's through this pathetic self-pity that Twain brilliantly shows us a man with a complete moral vacuum at his core.
And the system they set up was just a cruel bait and switch. At first, they offered the native Congolese a tiny payment for gathering wild rubber, but very quickly, that reward just disappeared. Rubber collection became a tax, a forced labor quota that was impossible to meet, imposed on entire villages. And if you failed to meet your quota, well, the punishment wasn't a fine, it was death. It was your village being burned to the ground. It was the women of your village being taken hostage and brutalized to force you and the other men to work even harder.
Let's just try to make this real for a second. 6,000. In one small district along the Mambogo River, Leopold's agents used 6,000 rifle cartridges in just 6 months. That's 1,000 bullets a month in one tiny corner of this gigantic territory. And every single bullet had to be accounted for in the most gruesome way you can possibly imagine.
This was the infamous hand tax. To prove to their white officers that they weren't wasting expensive bullets hunting animals for food, the soldiers of Leopold's private army, the Force Publique, were required to bring back one severed right hand for every cartridge they fired. Now think about the logic here. This created a nightmarish economy of human body parts. If a soldier used a bullet to hunt, or if they missed their human target, what did they do? They would find a living person, often a child because it was easier, and they would just cut off their hand to make the books balance.
81. This number comes directly from an eyewitness account by a missionary. One of Leopold's own soldiers led the reverend to a smoldering fire, and there, being smoked to preserve them for delivery to the state officials, were 81 severed human hands. You have to understand, this wasn't some hidden secret. This was bookkeeping. It was an administrative system of terror, and it was meticulously documented by the people carrying it out. And when word of these mass mutilations started to leak out to the rest of the world, Leopold's administration came up with a defense that was just pure cynical genius. They claimed they didn't invent the practice of cutting off hands. Oh no, they said it was just an old, pre-existing native custom they were following. It was a vicious lie on two fronts. First, it wasn't a widespread custom at all. And second, even if it had been, Leopold's regime was the one that industrialized it, that turned it into a systematic tool of state policy for profit.
For years and years, Leopold's millions successfully kept the press quiet. Any reports that did get out were dismissed as just the crazy ramblings of disgruntled missionaries. But then, something new emerged, a new kind of evidence, a witness that couldn't be bribed, couldn't be silenced, and couldn't be ignored.
And through Leopold's own imagined voice, Twain makes a point to give credit where credit is due. The king just fumes about these meddlesome missionaries and the frank British consuls. And why? Why were they such a thorn in his side? Because they stayed. They learned the local languages. They earned the trust of the Congolese people, who would come to them, show them their wounds, show them the stumps where their hands used to be. These were the people on the ground, documenting every last horror.
And this was the final nail in the coffin of Leopold's whole propaganda machine, the Kodak camera. All of a sudden, these stories had faces. The mutilations weren't just words in a dry report anymore. They were undeniable, horrifying photographs of men, women, and children with severed limbs. These images could be printed in newspapers and pamphlets around the world. As Twain's Leopold himself complains, the camera was the one witness he could never, ever buy off.
So as we get to the climax of the soliloquy, Leopold is backed into a corner. He's confronted with this photographic proof, and so he finally drops the whole philanthropic act. He stops making excuses, and he reveals his true, chilling philosophy about power and about all of us.
This right here is the dark heart of his argument. He's saying that his very existence, and the existence of every other tyrant, is proof of humanity's own weakness. He's essentially saying, don't blame me for being a monster, blame yourselves for letting me be one. It's an accusation aimed not just at his direct victims, but at everyone, at the entire human race, for its quiet compliance, its willingness to bow down to authority, no matter how cruel it is.
And this metaphor just shows his absolute, bottomless contempt for us. He says the public makes a lot of noise, like a giant whale breaching the ocean's surface, loud, impressive, but ultimately harmless. Because a true king, he says, knows that underneath all that noise, humanity is just a school of weak, insignificant tadpoles. We might complain, we might protest, but in the end, we'll always stay on our knees. In his mind, our silence, our inaction, is his ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card.
Well, eventually, the international pressure, fueled by people like Mark Twain, became just too much to handle. So Leopold was forced to appoint his very own commission of inquiry to investigate the claims. He was probably hoping they'd just produce a nice, whitewashed report he could wave around. Yeah, it didn't quite go according to plan.
The report was so unbelievably damning that Leopold actually tried to keep it a secret for 8 months. But the truth got out. His own hand-picked commission confirmed everything. They spoke of frightful abuses and general wretchedness. They detailed the hostage-taking of women, they confirmed that military expeditions routinely devolved into massacres and the burning of villages. And, maybe most importantly, they completely vindicated the testimony of the missionaries who Leopold had called liars for years. The king's own investigation had proven him guilty beyond any doubt.
At the end of his pamphlet, Twain includes an article from a British journal that summarizes all these horrors. And then it asks this brutally simple, shocking question. It's a question that just slices right through all the polite diplomacy and legal arguments. It forces us to ask, when crimes are this big, committed by a man protected by the shield of being a king, what does justice even look like? What is the right response to a king with 10 million murders on his soul?